I've developed my own power rankings algorithm for the purpose of eliminating the bias of name recognition. All of my power rankings are based off of 2020 statistics and nothing else. Here are my power rankings heading into week 12 of the 2020 NFL season. So once again, this week, we're going to bring up the spreadsheet. So you can see in this first column is what teams were ranked in my power rankings last week. And then in the second column, it's what teams are ranked currently. In this third, fourth column, you can see what the teams, what they're all listed and what their plus minus is from this week compared to last week in my rankings. And then we've got the ESPN rankings. We've got the NFL rankings. Finally, we have my rankings once again, and the plus minus of my rankings compared to ESPN and NFL. So as all of you can see, the New York Jets are still the worst team in the NFL. Jacksonville is riding up right behind them. They're going to be starting Mike Glennon this week, so that should be an interesting experiment. I still have Dallas at 30th. You can see the NFL and ESPN rose Dallas a little bit last week after they beat Minnesota. My power rankings didn't adjust them clearly to the same degree. We have Cincinnati. They're down a bunch of spots. With Joe Burrow going down for the season, I see why the NFL and ESPN have Cincinnati at 30 compared to my Dallas at 30. That makes a lot of sense to me. And if I was making the ranks with my brain rather than a mathematical formula, I probably would also do the same. And then I've got Detroit at 28, down 5 spots in my rankings. I'm actually 1 spot higher than the NFL on Detroit, and I'm 4 spots lower than ESPN on Detroit. But the Lions were my biggest faller. They're down 5 spots this week, so I want to talk about them a little bit more. So if you want to know why Detroit was the biggest faller in my rankings this week, you need not look any further than the box score from their last game. The Lions got shut out by a Panthers defense that was giving up 27.2 points per game heading into that game. And the Lions defense was playing against a Panthers offense that didn't have Christian McCaffrey or Teddy Bridgewater. Former XFL quarterback PJ Walker led the Panthers to a 20-0 victory over the Lions despite throwing 2 interceptions. Obviously, Matt Patricia is going to get fired, but honestly, I'm not too sure why he didn't get fired after that embarrassing loss last week. Maybe it's because Detroit's playing on Thursday, so it's a short week, and the management didn't want to bring in a new coach on a short week. But if Detroit loses to Houston, which is highly plausible, particularly if Detroit loses in embarrassing fashion, I think Matt Patricia might be out of a job this week. So then ahead of Detroit at 27, I have the team that will be playing Detroit on Thanksgiving, and that's the Houston Texans. They're up 2 spots in my rankings off the strength of a victory over the New England Patriots, who I said were the most overrated team last week. They proved me right. Then I have Philadelphia at 26. They're down 4 spots after the embarrassing loss once again. It's honestly crazy. All 4 teams in the NFC East are literally competing for like top 5 draft picks and competing for first place in the division where they would get a home playoff game. So that division is just an absolute disaster right now. After Philadelphia, I've got the Chargers at 25. They're up 1 spot in my rankings. They're 2 spots lower than ESPN, my rankings are, and they're 8 spots lower than NFL, my rankings are. And I think that the Chargers are probably the team that's the most underranked by my algorithm at this point. Since week 4, the fewest points the Chargers defense has given up in a game was 28. And that was against the Jets, who are historically one of the worst offenses in NFL history and score less than 15 points per game on average. So what I'm saying is the Chargers defense is pitifully bad this season. The good news for the Chargers is that Justin Herbert and the offense are playing phenomenally. Herbert is only behind Mahomes as far as active quarterbacks yards per game this season. Herbert is 6th in touchdown passes this season, he's 9th in interception rate, and he's 8th in quarterback rating. So although the defense is hemorrhaging points and the Chargers are really struggling to win games, my eyes tell me that the Chargers are clearly much better than the 25th best team in the NFL. I personally think the Chargers are probably better than every team I have ranked ahead of them until you hit Carolina at 18. Then at 24, I have the Atlanta Falcons. They're down 3 spots after losing to the Saints. I'm 1 spot higher than ESPN and 4 spots lower than the NFL on the Falcons. So then Washington at 23, up 5 spots in my rankings based off of the big win over the Bengals. And I'm actually ranking Washington a lot higher than ESPN and NFL. 6 spots higher than ESPN, 5 spots higher than NFL for the Washington football team. Then I've got Denver at 22. They went up 5 spots after a big win over my Miami Dolphins this past week. I'm 1 spot lower than Denver compared to the ESPN rankings, and I'm dead even compared to the NFL rankings with the Denver Broncos. Then we've got New England at 21. They're down 4 spots after an embarrassing loss to the Texans this past week. And I'm actually 3 spots lower on New England compared to ESPN and NFL, as they both have the Patriots ranked up at the 18th position. Then at 20, I've got the San Francisco 49ers. They're treading water after a bye week, which makes a lot of sense. Still at 19 as well, the New York Giants, also coming off of a bye. I'm 7 spots higher than ESPN on the Giants, and 4 spots higher than the NFL on the Giants. I'm not sure why the ESPN and NFL power rankings are so low on the Giants. I think the Giants are the best team in the NFC East. I mean, let's compare them to the Eagles, who just got embarrassed last week to the Browns. Let's compare them to Washington, who has Alex Smith at quarterback. Let's compare them to the Cowboys, who are struggling on defense, are playing with Andy Dalton at quarterback. I think the Giants, with how good their defense is playing, and Daniel Jones is starting to heat up a little bit here, I think they're clearly the front runners in the NFC East. The Giants just had a really, really tough beginning season schedule, but now the team's starting to get cooking even without Saquon there. Then at 18, I have the Carolina Panthers. They're up 6 spots after a dominant win over the Detroit Lions this past week. I'm 2 spots higher than ESPN, and I'm 1 spot higher than the NFL on the Panthers. Then at 17, I've got the Chicago Bears, up 1 spot in my rankings from last week. I'm 1 spot lower than ESPN on the Bears, but I'm 9 spots higher than the NFL on the Bears. So the NFL has the Bears all the way down at 26. That's probably the most shocking ranking out of any of the rankings from all 3 lists, in my opinion. Then at 16, I have the Minnesota Vikings, somehow sitting still after an embarrassing loss to the Cowboys this past week. I'm 3 spots higher than ESPN on the Vikings, and I'm even with the NFL as far as Vikings ranking. Then Cleveland at 15, they're treading water in the same spot. I'm 1 spot lower than ESPN and NFL on Cleveland. They both have Cleveland ranked up at 14, but I've got Baltimore at 14, dropping 4 spots after a really, really tough beat against Tennessee this past week. Baltimore has lost 2 in a row. They've lost 3 of their last 4, and they have to play the Steelers on Thanksgiving with no J.K. Dobbins, no Mark Ingram. So things could get worse before they get better for the Ravens. 13, I have the Arizona Cardinals, down 5 spots in my power rankings, which seems pretty rough after losing pretty narrowly to the Seattle Seahawks, who are, a good football team. Arizona, I'm 1 spot lower than ESPN, and I'm even with the NFL on Arizona. Then at 12, we're getting into the top 12 here. Buffalo, down 1 spot. I'm 7 spots lower than ESPN, and I'm 5 spots lower than NFL. It's the team that my algorithm is the lowest on compared to ESPN and NFL, and it's a team that I personally feel like my algorithm is definitely underrating. The Bills have maybe had the toughest schedule in the NFL if you go back and look at their season so far. The Bills' 3 losses all came against teams that are currently in playoff seeds. One of their losses came against the Tennessee Titans, who are 7-3, currently the 5th seed in the AFC playoff race. Another one of their losses was to the 9-1 Kansas City Chiefs, who are currently sitting in the number 2 seed in the AFC playoff race. And their third loss was to the Cardinals, who are currently in the 7th seed of the NFC playoff race. So all of the Bills' losses came against winning teams who are currently in playoff positions. And of the Bills' 7 wins, 4 of them came against teams that currently have winning records. By comparison, the 10-0 Pittsburgh Steelers have only beaten 3 teams all season with winning records. So just to do the math for you, Out of the Bills' 10 games this season, 7 of them have been against teams that currently have a winning record. The 10-0 Steelers have only played 3 teams. The battle-tested Bills need to be taken seriously as top AFC contenders. So after the Bills at 12, I've got Tennessee at 11. They're up 3 spots after beating the Ravens, which was a huge win for Tennessee. It was a game they really needed to win. Now they really need to win against the Colts this week to really make a good playoff push here. I'm 1 spot lower than ESPN on the Titans, and I'm even with the NFL rankings on them. Then I've got Vegas. They went down 3 spots thanks to a loss to the Chiefs. It was a narrow loss. The Raiders really played well enough to win that game, so I've got them at 10. I'm 3 spots higher than the ESPN rankings, and I'm 2 spots lower than the NFL rankings, so my rankings are a nice middle ground for where the Raiders should be ranked, and I think that's pretty accurate. I would personally, put Buffalo and maybe Tennessee ahead of them on the rankings here, but I mean, Vegas is a super legit team at this point. Derek Carr's having a phenomenal season. We've got Seattle at 9, up 4 spots in my power rankings after beating the Cardinals. That was a must-win game for the Seahawks, and they won it. Seahawks, I'm 2 spots lower than ESPN, who has them ranked up at 7, and I'm even with the NFL, who also thinks they're the 9th best team. Now we've got Miami at 8. They're down 3 spots after, just an atrocious performance, just a horrendous loss to the Broncos this past week. I'm not sure how the Dolphins didn't drop even further in my power rankings. I'm 7 spots higher than ESPN. I'm 7 spots higher than NFL. And they're probably right for putting Miami at 15. So they're clearly the team that my algorithm is the highest on compared to ESPN and NFL. The Dolphins had a chance to tie the Bills for the divisional lead this past weekend, but instead they had an embarrassing performance against a not very good Denver Broncos team. Seeing the Dolphins at 6 wins in my power rankings still ahead of 7-win teams like the Seahawks and the Bills is a little surprising to me. If I was being objective, I would probably put the Dolphins at 14th in my power rankings, 1 spot ahead of the Browns. The Dolphins' next 2 games are games that they should win, although this past game for them was one that they should have won, so nothing's guaranteed in the NFL. But let's just say the Dolphins win their next 2, they're up to an 8-4 record on the season, and their final 4 games are against the Chiefs, the Raiders, the Patriots, and the Bills. All 4 of those games are going to be tough games, and all 4 of those games are going to be great litmus tests for how good the Dolphins really are. If the Dolphins can win 2 out of those 4 games, they could finish the season with 10 wins and potentially make the playoffs. And if they did that, that would certainly blow what my expectations were for this team out of the water for the 2020 season. Then 1 spot ahead of Miami, I have the Green Bay Packers. They're down 1 spot after losing to the Colts this past week. And I think the Packers are an overrated team, to be honest. I don't think that they're real Super Bowl contenders this year. I'm 3 spots lower than ESPN. I'm 2 spots lower than the NFL. So I think that the perception of the Packers is that they are a legit top team, but I've seen too many bad losses and not spectacular performances from them. I don't think they're a top team this year. We have the Rams at 6, up 6 spots after a massive Monday night win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I'm 3 spots higher than ESPN. I'm 2 spots lower than the NFL, but rising up 6 spots this week, the Rams are my biggest riser of the week. The most impressive part of the Rams' victory this past week was how well they threw the ball against a really top quality Buccaneers defense. The Buccaneers defense is 3rd in sacks with 32, 2nd in interceptions with 14, and only gives up 23 points per game. The Rams were able to pass for 376 yards, 3 touchdowns, and scored 27. All those offensive stats against a quality defense, and the Rams' offense isn't even the strength of their team. The Rams' defense gives up 19.2 points per game, the 2nd fewest in the NFL, behind only the Pittsburgh Steelers, who give up 17.4 points per game. When you consider how much more difficult the Rams' schedule has been compared to the Steelers, those less than 2 points per game that the Rams give up more than the Steelers is pretty insignificant. The Rams have allowed the fewest passing touchdowns this season, surrendering just 11. The Rams give up the lowest yards per attempt to opposing quarterbacks. The Rams give up the 2nd fewest passing yards per game. The The Washington football team is the fewest. The Rams have the third most sacks in the NFL with 32. The Pittsburgh Steelers are first with 38. The Rams have the second best quarterback rating surrendered. Pittsburgh is first. So the point is, the Rams defense is a legit top 2 NFL defense. So if their offense can cook like they did on Monday night, the Rams are definitely a legit Super Bowl contender this season. Then at 5, down 1 spot, I have Tampa Bay, who just lost to the Rams, and my power rankings algorithm just has Tampa Bay a fraction of a point higher than the Rams. I'm 1 spot higher than ESPN and NFL on Tampa Bay. Then at 4, I've got the Indianapolis Colts up 5 spots after the massive win over the Packers this past week. I'm 4 spots higher than ESPN, and I'm 6 spots higher than the NFL on them. Both ESPN and the NFL have Green Bay ranked higher than Indianapolis, but I can kind of understand it because I think that Indianapolis is the team that is the most overrated by my algorithm right now. The Colts are a great football team, and consecutive wins over the Titans and the Packers is highly impressive. But some of the losses on the Colts record have me questioning how good their long-term potential is. Despite the fact that the Colts offense is 10th in points per game, I don't think their offense is very good. Seriously, the Colts are 10th in points per game, and the Bills are 11th in points per game. Who do you think is a more dynamic offense? I know I personally think that the Bills are more dynamic offense by a country mile. The Colts have had a very easy schedule from an offensive perspective, and when they play tough defenses like the Browns or the Ravens, their offense doesn't show up. The strength of this Colts team is clearly their defense. They are 5th in points per game given up, giving up a mere 20.8 points. On the season, the Colts defense has 12 interceptions, which is 3rd best in the league. They also have the 3rd best rating against opposing quarterbacks. This is kind of stupid to say, but the only way I'm really going to take the Colts seriously as Super Bowl contenders is if they can beat the Steelers here in the regular season. Obviously, if anybody can beat the Steelers being undefeated at this point, that team would be taken seriously as a Super Bowl contender. But if the Colts could do it, then that would prove to me that the Colts are capable of beating an elite defense. And if they can do that, they've already shown they're capable of beating elite offenses. So I would definitely take the Colts seriously as potential Super Bowl contenders. So myself, ESPN, and the NFL all agree that the top 3 teams are Kansas, Pittsburgh, and New Orleans. We differ a little bit in the NFL has Kansas first and Pittsburgh second, whereas ESPN and myself have Pittsburgh first and Kansas second, but we all have New Orleans as the 3rd best team. Those were my top 3 teams last week, so there's no movement there at all. I personally think New Orleans is probably the best team in the NFL right now. Taysom Hill or Drew Brees at quarterback, I think the Saints are the best team in the NFL. I don't know if you guys agree. Who do you think is the top team in the NFL? Do you guys think it's Pittsburgh, who's undefeated? Do you think it's Kansas, who only has 1 loss? Or do you think it's New Orleans? Comment below and let me know. I think the NFL is really competitive right now, and a lot of these top teams have question marks around them. You know, Pittsburgh has been struggling to run the football. Kansas City, almost lost to Las Vegas for the 2nd time this year. They can't run the football either. New Orleans, who knows if a team can figure out Taysom Hill or if Drew Brees is ever going to be back healthy. Indianapolis, I don't trust them against good defenses. Tampa Bay, if they don't get the run game going, they're not very good. The Rams, I don't know if I trust their offense. Green Bay Packers can't stop the run defensively. They also don't protect the quarterback very well. So on and so on. All these teams really have question marks. So who do you think is the best team in the NFL? All right, guys, so that's going to do it for this episode of my Power Ranking Show. If you made it all the way to the end and you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe. Click the bell to be notified when my next Power Rankings video is out. If you are already subscribed, please like the video, share it with your friends who think might enjoy it as well. Comment below with any thoughts on the Power Rankings. Follow me on Twitter at Empey Talks. Take care and enjoy your Thanksgiving, everyone.